Coach Juli Fulks just completed her 16th season as Division III head coach. She has 295 wins under her belt. 8 of those 16 seasons have been 20-plus win seasons. She has also been named Conference Coach of the Year 3 times, once in the NWC and twice in the HCAC. Kristina Williams joined the Lewis and Clark coaching staff prior to the 2016 season and was named the head coach in June 2018. She just completed her second season leading the program. Kristina Williams played for Coach Fulks at Lewis and Clark from 2009 to 2013, where the Pios had a combined record of 87 wins and 25 losses. The Pios were ranked in the top 25 from 2011 to 2013, ranking as high as 5th nationally in 2013 on the way to a 25-4 record. Following the 2011 season, Fulks was named NWC Coach of the Year, while guard Kristina Williams earned Player of the Year honors. The Pios recorded 3 straight NCAA tournament appearances, 3 21 seasons, and 2 NWC Championships. Williams was named an All-American following her senior season in 2013 and finished her career second all-time in school history for scoring with 1,790 points. Williams is in the top 10 in Pio history for rebounds, assists, and steals. Over her 4 seasons at Lewis and Clark, she was selected the Lois Smithwick Female Athlete of the Year, the department's top award, 3 times. So this is for Coach Fulks. When was the first time you saw Kristina play during the recruitment process? Was there anything different about her recruitment?
Yeah, so, when you sent this was like walk down memory lane. And as you pointed out, apparently I've been doing this now for a long time with a lot of years.
You're getting up there.
I am getting up there, and that really proved it right there. So, but thanks for the kind introduction. Yeah, so I remember, we saw Kristina twice that summer. And one was, they always have the high school tournament in San Diego, and then the other one was in Lake Tahoe. And, your staff can probably, attest to this, that when you walk in a gym and you see really talented players, they look different. And it's on a multitude of levels. It's one, just the pure athleticism of them, their ability to get up and down the floor, and just how they move and play with others on the court. And then 2, it's just all the other qualities that you really want. And Kristina's high school program was really well coached, and they were one of the few programs that I've seen that were playing a pace that was closer to college basketball than others. And so, not only did she have the skills, she came in with a much better background than a lot of players are able to do. And I thought that had an immediate impact in her freshman year, that she was just really well coached ahead of time. And so that gave her a step up on a lot of other incoming freshmen across the country.
I just wanted to add to that I always think it's fun to think back to the fact that you first saw me in South Lake Tahoe, because this isn't your typical club tournament that happens nowadays. This was a high school tournament in the small gym of South Lake Community College. And I'm pretty sure you were like the only college coach that went to that tournament. Like, this wasn't a tournament that normal coaches went to. And I'm sure part of the draw was going to South Lake Tahoe to recruit.
It was completely self-serving. I remember Coach Weitzel told me about this tournament and said, hey, you should go. And so I thought that sounds like a great idea. And it was my first time ever to South Lake Tahoe. And I fell in love with the Lake Tahoe area on those trips. And, there was just always a few really high quality teams that played there. And every year we ended up getting, a couple top recruits from that tournament. It was great because there was nobody else in the gym. And so you didn't have to compete with other people, and it was really laid back. And so it became much more just about basketball, and kind of those personal interactions. And shoot, I wish I could still go back to that tournament.
Yeah, I know. I actually have been looking into it. I think probably not this year now, but maybe next year I'll have to make it out there.
Yeah.
Okay, Kristina, what do you remember about your first couple of months at Lewis and Clark?
First couple of months, I was really nervous, first of all. Juli will attest to this, but I was pretty shy coming in as a freshman. And so, yeah, I was just nervous for the whole experience, heading off to college, being somewhere new, creating this new group of friends within my team. And yeah, I really didn't have much expectations when it came to what was going to happen on the court. I just knew that I was ready to get there and start working hard. That's something that was really ingrained in me through my high school experience. But yeah, I mean, Juli, you did a great job of really like welcoming me to the program. I felt like, I mean, one thing I remember is the fact that you came to all the freshman dorms when we were moving in and, you know, got a picture with us and helped us move some of our stuff in, met our families, stuff like that. I mean, from day one, we just really felt welcomed into the program. So that really helped. And then that year, actually, we got to do our international trip. So we went to Canada my freshman year. So we got to start our season a little bit early and play some of those extra games, which I felt like helped me tremendously. One of the things, she's laughing, but one of the things I remember like the most was that I literally could not put the ball through the rim. Like that whole trip, I think we played 3 or 4 games, and I think I did start like from the beginning maybe, but I just literally couldn't score. And I just remember you telling me afterward, like, it will click, you're doing the right things. But yeah, that definitely helped a whole lot.
I remember that part too.
Yeah. Yeah, it was rough. But looking back, I mean, I feel like by the time our first game of, you know, the season actually came, I felt like way more ready to go. So,
yeah.
Okay, Coach Fulks, this next one's for you. I'm going to kind of go with the setting first, and then I'll ask the question. Heading into the last weekend of NWC play during Kristina's freshman season, the team was 16-7. This was going to be the best record our team of yours had at LC, no matter the result of the next 2 games. How are you and your staff feeling? And then, you know, looking at the results, you guys played George Fox, lost 39-63, and then UPS 53-67. The team placed 4th in conference, got to the NWC tourney, had to face George Fox first round and end the season with a 57-98 loss in the NWC tourney. Do you remember your message to the team after that game? And just a side note, this was Scott Ruick's last year at George Fox.
I remember all 3 of those games really well, you know, for multiple reasons. So the weekend before, you know, things were going really well. But as you guys know, one of the hardest parts about that conference, especially then, you know, the top of the conference was the top of the country. And there were so many teams that could be ranked, you know, were always ranked. And the inevitability, it seemed like we always got the ranked teams on the same weekend. And so, you know, I remember, you know, which is one of the things I think that also does a really good job of preparing you for the NCAA tournament, is getting ready to play back-to-back games. And so, you know, obviously Kristina, you know, as a freshman, you get really excited for those weekends. But it's also really physically and mentally and emotionally challenging after playing an entire season and having those back-to-back. You know, and I remember the George Fox game started really slow scoring wise, and then the second half they jumped on us hard. And you know, I just thought the next day it was one of the harder games that we'd had to play, and we're not used to what that felt like to go to, you know, I think it was at George Fox, have a chance to compete, didn't go well, and then to try to turn around in 10 hours and play another, you know, top 25 team. You know, and so that was on one level really, really hard. And, you know, and it was probably a really good indication we weren't quite ready yet. But we had a lot of the right pieces. And then obviously, Kristina will probably never forget that next game either. The game was over probably about 7 minutes into the game. It was one of those days where they came out and made everything. And we were struggling to score, and they were clicking on all cylinders. And, you know, it's one of those, which now thankfully having been on the other side of that game a few times where, you know, we were the team winning. You know, it was a pretty overwhelming game. And I remember we went into halftime, and Coach Weitzel and I had a conversation about how we were going to address that halftime. And the end-all message was, we would like them to remember this next year. And so it was probably one of my most verbal halftimes of my career. But, you know, I thought what I really wanted them to remember from that was we actually were talented enough from a skill level. We weren't ready yet, but I didn't want them to ever think that they weren't going to be ready. And, you know, I mean, sometimes those failures are a really important step of the process in terms of motivation. And it was the last time I felt like we weren't ready ever while Kristina was playing there.
Yeah, I feel like it wasn't that we were like intimidated. I really don't think it was that. I think that we just maybe weren't ready to go. You know, I was still a freshman. We had a lot of sophomores playing. Kristina Herring, our point guard, was still a junior, so we were on the relatively young side. Not to mention George Fulks had just won the national championship the year before that. So, I mean, not to take anything away from them, but yeah, I think that was definitely – I had, you know, played in big playoff games in high school and stuff like that, but that was different, and I think it was like a big wake-up call for sure.
Yeah. You know, there's just that difference of talented underclassmen versus talented seniors, and just their really, you know, their understanding of how to mentally, emotionally be prepared for every possession to compete. And when you're playing those top teams, you know, all of a sudden a bad 2 minutes and you're down 12.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had a couple segments that didn't go well. And then you fast forward to, you know, Kristina's junior and senior year, and we were the team where, man, if you weren't ready, the score would just flip on a dime and you didn't have a chance. But it was great that they were all playing, you know, such huge minutes as underclassmen, because by the time they were upperclassmen, there was nothing they hadn't seen, and playing with a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
Okay, Kristina, this is for you. The very next time you played George Fulks was the next season on January 7th, 2011. George Fulks had a new coach that year, Michael Meek. You guys end up winning the game 58-56. What do you remember about that game?
So yeah, to be completely honest, I don't remember a whole lot of details. I did look up the box score, so I have a couple of notes about that, which I found really interesting. But, you know, they had a new coach, so Michael Meek. And so, you know, we knew things would probably be somewhat similar, but maybe a little bit different too. I think maybe that gave us a little bit of confidence in some way. Our team, I don't think, really ever had a problem with confidence. I don't, when I think back, like, I don't really think that we were intimidated very much going into games. And so even though we had just been crushed by them last time we played them last season, I think we just thought we were going to win that game. And so, but a couple of the things that I saw in the box score, which were really crazy. So our point guard was senior Kristina Herring. She played 39 minutes that game in a game that we won by 2 points and had 0 turnovers. I just thought that was awesome. You know, and Fox is a team that full court presses like the whole game. And so, you know, that obviously had a big impact on the game. And then I laughed at this one. I played 38 minutes in this super close game. I'm sure I was guarding Keisha Gordon, who went on to be an All-American, and I finished the game with 0 personal fouls, which to me was probably saying I wasn't playing super hard defense. But I don't know. I just thought those two things were interesting. But yeah, I would say kind of the biggest thing I remember from that game is just that we went into it thinking that we could win, which was pretty similar to most every game we went into.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the game, actually, when you sent me that recap, I had to go back and look at that one too. That's the one of all the years. I don't remember. I can't believe it, because it would have been the first time we beat them.
Yeah.
Well, with you, because we beat them, you know, my 4th year. But that's the only matchup I think I don't remember. And I had to do the same thing when you sent that. I'm like, is that right? Because
yeah, and it's a 2-point game, which is
yeah.
great.
Although for the foul thing, that was back in the day where they didn't call nearly as many fouls. That was before all the hand check rules. But I'm not going to comment on the defense either.
I'm sure. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure I was trying hard, but it was never very good.
Okay, Coach Fulks, this is for you. Fast forwarding a bit, Kristina's sophomore season ended with you guys winning the NWC first place title, tied with George Fulks, and received an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. Both of these accomplishments were the first time in school history for the women's basketball program. First question is, what was it like to do these things for the first time? And then follow-up is, what was the energy like at Lewis and Clark?
I mean, you know, what I remember is there was a huge upswell in terms of support. You know, at that point, I don't think anybody else had been as a team to the NCAA tournament. And it really was a culture shift. You know, and Kristina, if I had to think about what, you know, Kristina's fundamental things that she changed about our program and many programs was what off-season workouts could and should look like. And, you know, her sophomore year, she, while was really talented as a freshman, you know, she was a different player as a sophomore. And, you know, and it was all around. I mean, she was a good rebounder, obviously a really talented scorer. You know, nothing compared. I mean, her senior year was just a whole nother level of all of that. And so, I mean, that was a catalyst to everything we were doing. We had, we had a lot of different talented players. Our inside game was incredibly strong. As she mentioned, you know, Kristina Herring was a really talented point guard. Kristina's teammate, Sarah Villanueva, you know, as our second point guard. I mean, they just gave us a lot of options. And to get to the NCAA tournament, it kind of feels like every time your team does something, sometimes for the first time, it doesn't go well. So, you know, the first time we made it to the conference tournament, it didn't go well, you know, that sort of thing. But then, you know, the next time we would tend to win that. So it was kind of like that next step forward of, you know, we had been trying like crazy for 6 years to get to the NCAA tournament, and to get there and to have the support. I mean, it was exciting, but, you know, it was led by, you know, Kristina's off-season workout for sure.
Okay. Kristina, you started out your junior year 11-0 and ranked number 10 in the country. What was the culture like on this team?
Junior year, I mean, that year was a lot of fun. So we had quite a few players who had been playing with each other now for 2 to 3 years. Senior class, you had players like Margaret Dowling, Neva Hauser, Megan Spence. You know, in my classes, myself, Sarah Villanueva, and then we had a pretty big sophomore class who had gotten some minutes to that point, but this was kind of the year where they really got to, you know, see the court more and show what they could do. So it was an exciting beginning of the season. Something else that was unique about that team, it was just like a super fun team to be around. Our sophomore class specifically were a bunch of goofballs and just like a really, like lighthearted, super fun to travel with. And we just had a ton of fun together. So I think that, you know, helped the culture a whole lot. I'm sure Juli could probably speak on a lot of things that she did to manage all of us and make sure our culture was like in a good spot. But, you know, from what I can remember, it was a lot of fun. Part of that 11-0 stretch, we traveled to New York, which was super cool. We got to play in a tournament there versus Keene, I think is how you say it. Is that right? Yeah. And we upset them in their gym, which was, well, I felt like an upset. I guess I don't know if it was an upset, but so we won that tournament, which was really awesome. And then we ended the 11-0 stretch in Southern California. And something I remember about that trip was my parents during the trip somehow found a way, I think in a mall or something, to get t-shirts made for our whole team that said 11-0. And I think maybe had like our motto on them. And they got them made before the last game, just assuming we were going to win that 11th game. But yeah, we ended up winning them, and then they showed up with these t-shirts, which was pretty cool. But yeah, the energy was definitely really high. I think at that point we were definitely ranked nationally. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, we were feeling pretty good at that point.
Coach Fulks, this is for you. Thinking about the 2011-2012 team, it can be argued that this team was the best women's basketball team to come through Lewis and Clark. The team finished off the season 25-4 and was ranked as high as number 7 in the country. It's important to note that all 4 losses came to George Fox, who was ranked in the top 5 in the country all season long. Do you agree that this team may have been the best team to come through Lewis and Clark?
Yeah. You know, what I remember about that year, you know, we were really senior heavy, and so was George Fox. And the importance of going to the East Coast to play in that tournament, Keene at that point had been, you know, in the top couple in the country. And it was, you know, it's just always really hard for teams to break into the top 5, the top 10 from the West Coast until you go somewhere east and get a marquee win. And so we wanted to do that. But what I remember about that tournament is the first game of the year, we played a team, and I can't remember who it was. And it was a team that, I thought we were supposed to, quote, win. And they played a zone and we just couldn't make anything. And so here we are, we've flown to the East Coast to win this game so that we can get to Keene, and we just can't make anything. And what I remember, down the stretch, I think we were, down 1 or 2, or I don't remember, but at the buzzer, Neva Hauser, our post player, hits a 3 to win. And she had spent 3 years working on, improving her shot. And so she shot 40% as a senior. And you never know how that one moment then translates to getting to play Keene, to get that win, to being ranked at the top of the country. And, for the first time being viewed as a national powerhouse versus just one of the really good teams in the Northwest Conference. And then you fast forward, and that was one of the years, it felt like we just couldn't catch a break. Margaret, we had 2 threes that were unbelievably talented, Margaret Dowling and Taylor Wang, and Margaret got a concussion in the conference tournament heading into the NCAA tournament. And then the night before, on one of our last reps, Taylor Wang had sprained her ankle. And so here we were going into, the NCAA tournament with what we believed was one of the best teams in the country, but without really 2 of our top players. And, we took George Fulks literally all the way to the wire and hit a, almost half-court shot at the buzzer to win that they, ended up being 0.1 seconds late. And then George Fulks, went all the way to the national championship game, winning everything by 20 and 30. So it's, it's one of the disappointing things about being on the West Coast was just that you were inevitably paired up against each other almost every year in the NCAA tournament. But that would have been one of the years that would have been really exciting to see what it would have looked like to play the rest of the country, because we had all the pieces that Kristina's mentioned, at all the positions with a lot of experience.
Yeah, and you might have already mentioned this already, but at that point, we kind of been running the same system for 3 years. And so, everyone pretty much had, the reads that we couldn't necessarily make my freshman year. We were making at a super high level by that time. And I forgot about those injuries that we had. That was pretty big time. So,
yeah. It was the best, if you looked at classic fundamental basketball, we were incredibly skilled in the half court in terms of shot selection and rebounding at both ends. It was a team that could be really physical and score and defend at every spot. And I thought that made that team extra special.
Yeah, I think we played a little bit of bully ball, to be honest. I've had some coaches come up to me and kind of talk about that team. And I mean, we had 2 6-footers basically, Margaret at 5'11", me at the 2 at 5'9", and then, our point guard. But we pretty much just posted up whoever we needed to from position 5 to 2, and just were really physical. I'm not sure how that game would translate in today's age with new rules and foul rules and stuff like that. But
you'd certainly be very good on offense.
Yes, true. Yeah.
Kristina, heading into your senior year, the program lost some key contributors to graduation, including starters Megan Spence, Neva Hauser, and Margaret Dowling. Do you think the team thought you could match or best the performance from the previous season?
Yeah, I mean, looking back, I think that maybe we shouldn't have been so confident. I mean, those were some pretty big losses we had in the 2 years between, again, Christina Herring, 2 years prior, and then those three people who had been starting for pretty much 3-4 years. But again, we just were. Like, I don't think back, and maybe Juli has a different outlook on this, but I don't look back thinking that we were going to do anything different from what we had been doing. Actually, we felt like we were going to go further, right? We had national championship goals, and really felt like we could do that. I think we knew that we were going to have to change a lot especially within our offense. We were going to be way smaller. We pretty much, for most of the year, played 5 guards. Sometimes, we were able to have 1 center in there, but yeah, pretty much played 5 guards. And so that was very different from the basically 3 post lineup that we had played for 3 years prior to that. So, yeah, I would say, I think honestly, we were pretty confident still, but we definitely had to figure out a lot, and that's, you know, credit to the coaching staff for that.
Yeah, when I think about that year, you know, it was the biggest overhaul that I've done to date from one team to the next on offensive styles. And while I knew we had a lot of talent, I had no idea how it was going to look on the floor. And I think it was kind of, you know, one of the things that now has changed me a lot as in my coaching too, especially with the rule changes now. That was Kristina's last year was the last year where you could still be really physical in defense. Her and Sarah would have been a deadly combination on offense if they had the rules today, because people just stopped them by fouling them. But, you know, the attack on offense, man, if we got a defensive rebound, we scored every possession in about 6 seconds. You know, it was whoever got the rebound. We didn't run a point guard system on misses. And, you know, Kristina and Sarah and Taylor and Katie, they were so good at getting the ball down the floor and going right to the rim that, you know, I didn't even know how effective that was going to be. And so, you know, we were smaller. We just tried to keep everybody in front, but it was, you know, the first time probably now that all I'm accused of is just trying to outscore the other team. But, you know, we put up 80 most nights, and as long as we didn't give up 70, we didn't seem to really care.
Yeah, I mean, kind of thinking back to that, did you and the rest of the coaching staff, I mean, were you guys nervous to make that change? Because it was so different from, I mean, we didn't transition a whole lot my first 3 years. Like, I was pretty much in one position on the court for a lot of my first 3 years, to then, like, bringing the ball up the court as the point guard. You know, it just was so different.
Yeah, you know, I mean, for sure nervous. You know, shoot, I'd be way more nervous now than I know more. And I probably should have been way more nervous then, so I might have been right there in the confidence group, just assuming it was going to work.
Yeah.
But,
I was letting you coach, it's okay, just give me the ball. It'll all be
right. And honestly, like, that was when you have great players, sometimes the best you can do is get out of the way. And, you know, the challenge is always, you know, making sure that when you have to get into a half court game, you can still win those possessions. But, you know, that group was equally as effective in the half court and just did it differently. But, you know, part of that effectiveness was just having key players that you could get the ball to and they could score in their matchups. And, you know, it doesn't matter what offense I teach my players. If they can do that, they can run just about anything. And, you know, we just had the upperclassmen who could score.
Yeah.
Coach Fulks, looking back at those 4 years with Kristina, what was special? What made those teams so successful?
Well, I think it was a combination. And it's one of the things that, you know, Kristina mentioned, and I thought it was really true her sophomore year. You know, there were kind of two expectations. And one was we have these really high standards. We want these to meet these high standards and have these goals. But at the same time, we're going to spend a lot of time together, so we might as well enjoy it. And, you know, that freshman class, they brought a lot to us in a team culture way, in ways that we needed. You know, there's just got to be a fun element to it. And, you know, I think because of that group and that situation, I mean, still today, you know, we talk about all the time that we need to make sure we're enjoying this, because it's just too many hours. You know, we give up so much of the other side of our life, and we spend sometimes more times with our team than we can with other people. And, you know, from a player to coach perspective, I think, you know, we should be equally as concerned of hitting our goals as enjoying it. And I think that team was the first one that really helped open my eyes of what you know, what that could look like, having such high expectations on both sides. You know, from all of it, from the off-season workouts that, you know, people like Kristina were doing, that she was leading and, you know, kind of demonstrating this is how you get to be this successful. And then, hey, yeah, shoot, let's have fun while we do this.
Yeah, that sophomore, or I guess freshman group, the Katie Anderson, Taylor, Kat Howell, they remind me a little bit, Scott, of our current sophomores, where, you know, they're going to be focused and they're going to get what they need to get done. But then every once in a while in practice, you have to stop them from, like, dancing, or, you know, like, or you just let them do it because they're having fun and they're enjoying it and it's an okay moment for it. But they're a blast to be around for sure.
Okay, final question. Coach Kristina, could you have ever imagined that just 5 years after graduating, you would be sitting in Juli's same position at Lewis and Clark as head coach?
I mean, short answer to that is no. Definitely not. I mean, I remember Juli telling me when I was a player that she got the head coaching job at Lewis and Clark at 25, and I thought that was just, absolutely crazy. And then I ended up getting the head coaching job at 27, I believe. So, wasn't too far off. But, I mean, no, I couldn't have. When I was, still playing, Juli and I actually had a bet where, she really thought that I was going to go into the coaching profession. And I mean, she might be able to speak better to that, but I'm pretty sure she was convinced of it. And I was convinced that I wasn't going to. I couldn't see it. I was still pretty shy at that point. Not the best public speaker. And I remember telling Juli at one point, how do you even know what to say in timeouts? I feel like I would call a timeout and then not know what to say. And now, I have to catch myself from saying way too much in timeouts. So, I just obviously wasn't quite at that point yet when I was 18 to 21-year-old, but, I was still maturing and all that. But yeah, I once I went into my master's program and really started to get more experience in the coaching profession and got a couple years under my belt, I realized how much I enjoy it and how much I, feel like I can actually do for these young student athletes. So, once I really started to dip my foot into it a little bit, I felt like, yeah, this is the route I want to go. And I never really thought I'd end up at Lewis and Clark. When I was in my master's program, I assumed I was going to end up some other place in the country. I did some interviews in Pennsylvania and in Maine, because I was doing my master's program in New England. But it just worked out that the position opened up at Lois and Clark, and yeah, so I rolled with it. But yeah, that's all I got on that.
Awesome. Well, that wraps it up. Any final thoughts?
Thanks, Juli, for joining us on this. It was awesome to remember some of these different things that happened, and those were a fun 4 years for sure.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. I mean, for me, this was a great walk down memory lane. Lewis and Clark obviously holds a really special place in my heart in coaching. And I knew Kristina was going to end up in coaching because what I saw for 4 years, she had a passion for the game in all parts of the game. But, she also had a passion for others' growth. And there's no better combination for any coach, in my opinion. And so, I'm excited to see what you guys keep doing and, and all the ways that your players are going to develop, not just on the court, but, as future professionals, as people. I think that's one of the great things you guys are doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.